In June of 2022, a restaurant in Lake George, New York, quietly closed its doors for the last time. It had been serving customers on that same corner for 70 years. No press conference, no farewell tour, just an orange and blue building that stopped opening one morning. And with it, the very last Howard Johnson's restaurant in America disappeared. If that name doesn't mean much to you, that's exactly the point of this video. Because for about 40 years, Howard Johnson's wasn't just a restaurant chain. It was, by a wide margin, the biggest one in the country, bigger than McDonald's, bigger than Burger King, bigger than KFC. Not close. This is Whatever Happened to Howard Johnson's, the pharmacy counter. The whole empire started in 1925 in Quincy, Massachusetts, with a man named Howard Daring Johnson and a $2,000 loan he used to buy a small corner pharmacy. Pharmacies back then often had soda fountains, and Johnson's had ice cream, but not just any ice cream. He reformulated it with double the butterfat of what competitors were selling, and then did something that seems obvious now, but was genuinely novel at the time. Instead of offering 3 or 4 flavors like everyone else, he offered 28. Vanilla and chocolate, sure, but also butter crunch, burgundy cherry, macaroon, maple walnut, coffee brandy. 28 flavors became his signature number, and by 1928, it was locked in as a permanent part of the brand. Flavors could rotate in and out, but the number 28 never changed. The ice cream sold so well that Johnson opened his first actual restaurant in Quincy in 1929, adding fried clams, hot dogs, baked beans, and chicken pot pie to the menu. And then he made the decision that turned a single ice cream stand into an American institution. He started franchising, the Orange Empire. Here's what made Howard Johnson's instantly recognizable from a moving car, which mattered more than almost anything else in an era when America was falling in love with the automobile. The buildings themselves. Colonial revival architecture, sea blue shutters, and a steep, unmistakable orange-tiled roof that you could spot from the highway before you could even read the sign. It was branding before branding was really a word anyone used for restaurants, a visual signal that told tired, hungry drivers exactly what they were about to get, mile after mile, state after state. By 1940, that one pharmacy had turned into 130 locations along the East Coast. Then came the real accelerant, the interstate highway system, greenlit in 1956. Howard Johnson's got in early and got in aggressively, planting orange roofs at highway exits and rest stops across the country before most competitors even had a national strategy. By 1965, Howard Johnson's sales had surpassed McDonald's, Burger King, and KFC combined. Not one of them, all three added together. At its absolute peak in the mid-1970s, the company operated and franchised more than 1,000 restaurants and over 500 motor lodges across 42 states and Canada. If you drove anywhere in America between the 1950s and the 1970s, an orange roof was never far away. For an entire generation, Howard Johnson's wasn't a special occasion. It was just what a road trip looked like. Peak Hojo. It's worth sitting with how dominant this actually was, because it's easy to hear biggest restaurant chain in America and not really process it. This was a company whose orange roofs were more common on the American highway system than golden arches. Families didn't just eat there, they planned trips around where the next Howard Johnson's would be, because you knew exactly what you were getting. Fried clams, a fish fry with golden fillet and coleslaw, and a full wall of ice cream flavors that no competitor could match. The company became so synonymous with road trips that meet you at the Hojos was just how people talked. And this is exactly the kind of peak that makes a fall interesting, because when something is this dominant, the assumption is always that it's permanent. The fall. It wasn't one single mistake. It was a slow accumulation of them, starting in the 1970s. The oil embargoes of that decade hit road trip culture directly. When gas got expensive and scarce, fewer families were taking the kind of long highway drives that had built Howard Johnson's entire business model. At the same time, fast food chains were solving a problem Howard Johnson's never really addressed: speed. McDonald's, Burger King, and KFC could get you food faster and cheaper, using franchise systems built around consistency and low overhead in a way Howard Johnson's sit-down format simply couldn't match. Howard Johnson's response was, more or less, to not respond. The menu stayed largely frozen in time while American tastes shifted around it. Quality slipped as ownership changed hands and cost-cutting crept into the kitchens. And then came the corporate moves that really sealed it. The company was sold to the British conglomerate Imperial Group in 1979, and then in 1985, Marriott bought it. But Marriott didn't actually want the restaurant chain. They wanted the real estate. So, Marriott sold off most of the Howard Johnson's locations in the process. The Howard Johnson name lived on afterward, mostly as a budget hotel brand, a footnote most people don't even connect to the restaurants anymore. By the 1990s, the 1,000-plus locations of the 1970s had shrunk to a small handful. By the 2000s, you could count the survivors on one hand, the last one standing. For its final years, exactly one Howard Johnson's restaurant remained open in the entire United States. The location in Lake George, New York, a lakeside tourist town that had hosted a Hojo's for 70 years. It became a genuine pilgrimage site for people who remembered the chain from childhood, a living museum you could still order fried clams from. Local and national news outlets ran periodic check-ins on it, treating its continued existence almost like a small miracle. That miracle ran out in June 2022. The restaurant didn't reopen after Memorial Day weekend that year, and the closure was confirmed shortly after. Quiet, undramatic, and final. The property has since been sold, and where the last orange roof in America once stood, a sushi and hibachi buffet now operates. 97 years after Howard Johnson borrowed $2,000 to buy a Quincy pharmacy, the chain he built from a soda fountain into the largest restaurant company in the country was completely, permanently gone. Howard Johnson's didn't fail because the food was bad or the idea was wrong. It failed because it built an empire around a version of America. Slow highway road trips, sit-down family meals, one dominant brand you could trust at every exit that simply stopped existing, replaced by something faster and cheaper before the company figured out how to adapt. It went from outselling McDonald's, Burger King, and KFC combined to a single restaurant in upstate New York, and then to nothing at all. Did you ever eat at a Howard Johnson's or grow up hearing about them from your parents? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories about the restaurants America forgot, that's exactly what this channel does.